get that out of my system. After reviewing a parody of Street Fighter and a Tekken movie that I wish was more faithful, we've come to the end of Fighting Game Movie Month. What started out as a video game based on the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Bloodsport has become one of the most popular and well-known fighting games for its characters, its world, its story, and most importantly, its violence that birthed the M rating. Mortal Kombat was like Enter the Dragon mixed with Star Wars. The world's greatest fighters are sent to an island to participate in a tournament and prevent an evil emperor from conquering them. The Mortal Kombat IP was set to be the perfect video game movie from the get-go. Ed Boon and John Tobias, the two biggest forefathers of the Mortal Kombat franchise, were inspired by movies like Enter the Dragon and Big Trouble in Little China. So it only made sense that a video game inspired by movies was on the right path to success when being made into a movie. Well, as a young kid whose first Mortal Kombat video game was Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, the movie is really faithful even if I didn't get to see everything I saw in the video game. Watching it as an adult now, I appreciate it even more than I did before. I used to think of the movie as a guilty pleasure, but now I can confidently say it's the best video game movie of all time, and I don't see it as a guilty pleasure watch anymore, but an actual good movie. All the characters are just impressive and true to their video game counterpart. It's like rewatching another version of Enter the Dragon, but more fantastical. Liu Kang's the chosen one, Johnny's the wisecracking action movie guy, Sonya's the badass babe, Raiden is hilarious but wise at the same time. I don't know, man. This movie just has a charm to it that other video game movies don't have. It just so happens to hit you with nostalgia by replicating things from the video game while still being true to its source material. And I believe this is what every video game movie should strive to do. But I'll stop fanboying over everything and just start the review. From the very moment the New Line Cinema logo appears, we are already in for one hell of a ride. Most movies usually ease you in, let you feel out the atmosphere, yada yada yada. This movie just says, "Get over here!" and pulls you right in with a theme song. We're then shown Liu Kang's brother, Chen, trying to fight the sorcerer Shang Tsung, and getting stomped on, literally. Turns out it was only just a dream, as Liu Kang wakes up from the nightmare of his brother getting killed, only to discover through a letter from his grandfather that his nightmare actually happened. Next, we go to Hong Kong, where we are introduced to Sonya Blade and her squad as they infiltrate one of Kano's hideouts. And Kano's hideout it is. He's hiding out with Shang Tsung, who wants him to lure Sonya to his island for plot reasons we'll find out later. The third character introduction brings us to Los Angeles, where we see Johnny Cage fighting four suited stuntmen at a movie set, until one of them doesn't know how to take a fall.
This is where you fall down.
Sick of the unprofessional professionals, Johnny leaves to go to his trailer and is greeted by his teacher, Master Boyd, who brings him an invitation to the Mortal Kombat tournament. We bring our focus back to Liu Kang as he returns home to the Shaolin Temple in China to pay respects to his brother. He's greeted by his grandfather, who tells him about how before Chen died, he was following in Liu's footsteps and preparing for the tournament to save the world. Liu Kang is skeptical about this tournament to save the world mumbo-jumbo, and dislikes how his father filled him and his brother's head with its nonsense. The monks also don't take too kindly to Liu returning, since he's apparently the chosen one who was supposed to help save Earthrealm, but abandoned them when they needed him most. This is when Connor Raiden, appears, and all the monks begin bowing before him. Liu Kang raises his grandfather up again, calling this white man a beggar, until Raiden asks Liu Kang to show him how he's going to win the tournament. The result? Liu gets back up and decides he's had enough of this shit and leaves to seek out his brother's killer on his own, with or without their consent. Later that night at the docks, Johnny Cage arrives first and comes across another martial artist named Art Lean, and both admire each other's works. Liu Kang then passes Johnny, who mistakes him to be a luggage carrier. Liu Kang happily obliges. Off in the distance, Sonya and Jax scout out the area until a mythological Chinese boat arrives, and Sonya catches a glimpse of Kano in the distance. All our characters eventually get on the boat and cross paths for the first time momentarily. Sonya wanders the boat looking for Kano and comes across Shang Tsung, who welcomes her to his boat. Johnny and Liu then appear to aid her in case Shang Tsung gets a little creepy. Then the MK mascots arrive. Why the hell aren't they enemies?
Scorpion and Sub-Zero, deadliest of enemies, but slaves under my power.
Well, that makes more sense than them willingly working together. Tekken. Sonya tells the ninjas to freeze, and Sub-Zero does just that. Glad to know they upped the ante in the reboot. And just right after they show Scorpion's weird flying spear snake palm creature, Raiden arrives in time to stop them all from fighting, stating that the fighting is expressly forbidden before the tournament. To which Shang Tsung allows for our fighters to go free, as Raiden gives them some needed explanation about what they're dealing with. MK fans, you already know what's up. Earthrealm, Outworld, Shao Kahn win 10 tournaments to conquer Earth. They have won 9, this will be their 10th, and
It has begun!
Our fighters arrive on Shang Tsung's island, and Liu Kang slowly begins to become less skeptical of the legends his grandfather told him. Johnny looks lost as fuck, and Sonya is still in mission mode. After the trio trek up an obviously fake but still terrifyingly high flight of stairs, Luke comes across a beautiful woman underneath an umbrella, and the two gaze at each other momentarily by a reptilian statue before moving along. Shang Tsung then appears and reveals that the beautiful woman sitting is Princess Kitana, and that Reptile should keep an eye on her. Holy shit, what did they do to you, Reptile? Who rendered you? We find ourselves later at a dining hall, where Shang Tsung greets all the contestants, before flipping a table over to allow Sub-Zero to demonstrate his down forward too. Right after that awesome demonstration, Liu attempts to go after Shang Tsung, but is stopped by Johnny as he reminds him of how Raiden told him not to seek out Shang Tsung, or else he would lose. As the two talk, Sonya goes on ahead without the two to find Kano, and both follow after her in case she does something stupid or runs into Shang Tsung. Thankfully, no one pointed out that they were at the pit. Meanwhile, Kano is eating his heart out. Haha! Heart out? Get it? Cause it's fatality? Alright, I'll stop. Kano's pigging out, while also talking to a certain prince as the trio lurks from above a crevice. Hello, Goro. Goro looks muscular, but also skinny at the same time. Looks like someone skipped leg day. But if that's how he looked like in real life, I wouldn't dare say that to his face. Shang Tsung then appears in Goro's dining room, and reminds Kano to not harm but humiliate Sonya because he has plans for her. He also reminds Goro to not allow Kitana to interact with the Earthrealm fighters because it would open up the opportunity for her to betray him. The trio then stops eavesdropping and decide to leave, but Shang Tsung has a keen ear and sends his troops after them. As the three try to escape, they come across a different doorway when they entered. Liu Kang spots Kitana in the distance and tries to holler, only to be greeted by Reptile. You know, if this movie wasn't rated PG-13, Liu Kang definitely would have died here. Reptile's acid spit is no joke. Johnny, following Kitana's perfume trail, don't ask me why, he just said it himself. Kitana's perfume leads the trio to Goro's dining room, where they are greeted by Shang Tsung's troops. And soon the fighting begins. I would insert sound effects from the game to improve this scene, but I don't think it's necessary. Raiden claps in amazement at the Earthrealm fighters' abilities, but laughs at their depth of perception, as armed goons appear out of thin air. And just before they attack, Raiden summons a little lightning to scare them off, and saves the fighters once more. Man, do I fucking love Christopher Lambert as Raiden. Such an odd casting choice, yet he's so badass. There can be only one. The next day, the tournament begins, and Liu Kang is the first one to fight. He has a stick fight with another opponent, who loses, and gets the soul drained out of him. And just check out the ADR for Shang Tsung here.
Your soul is mine.
For Sonya, she finally gets to meet and fight Kano.
Give it up, baby. I've studied all your moves.
Yeah, well, you should have studied your moves too, Kano. You can throw a knife and turn into a human-sized cannonball. Sonya is whipping Kano real good, until Kano knocks the wind out of her with a kick to the gut. He prepares to finish her, until Sonya hits Kano with her signature leg grab. You better be careful, Sonya. Those puppies are damn near about to fall out. And she gives him a break. Johnny, on the other hand, is wandering through some woods for some reason, when all of a sudden...
Get over here!
Scorpion tries to get Johnny with a flying snake palm spear thing, but fails. Johnny tries to hit Scorpion with his shadow kick, but Scorpion teleports them both into the Netherrealm. I like to think an NRS employee has an office that looks just like this, and every time you enter you just hear,
Welcome
Scorpion kicks Johnny's ass over and over for a good while, until Johnny uses the swing ability to kick him and gain the high ground. "It's over, Scorpion! I have the high ground!" But Scorpion's not having that shit and tells him to "Get down here!" and forces Johnny to the ground. Now that both are grounded, Scorpion attempts to pull an early fatality on him, but luckily for Johnny, there just so happens to be an abandoned spear and sawed shield near him for just such an occasion. And he defeats Scorpion with a friendship. For Liu Kang's next fight, he goes against the Princess of Edenia, Kitana, but the two have an awkward fighting back and forth conversation that foreshadows things to come by telling him, "Use the element that brings life." Not an impressive fight, but it marks a turning point. Their back and forth conversation pisses Shang Tsung off like a jock angry at his girl talking to a nerd, and we never get a follow-up or an answer to how she got punished for talking to the enemy. They just probably threw her back in Outworld or something for misbehaving. Later that night, Liu Kang enters an empty room with janitor monks, where he meets Sub-Zero. The two fight throughout the room, and Sub-Zero seems to have the upper hand until Liu kicks him in the chest. This is when he begins charging his ice ball, and forming a freezing force field around him. The force field gives Liu a mean frostbite, and remember that foreshadowing thing Kitana told Liu earlier? Well yeah, that helps Liu here. And with the element that brings life, Liu throws a bucket of water at Sub-Zero, creating a giant icicle that stabs him in the chest, killing him. If they melt him into liquid, put the liquid into a bucket, dump in a whole bottle of black ink into the bucket, and add a sprinkle of Shang Tsung sorcery, could it be possible for him to become Noob Saibot? Just throwing possibilities out here, man. And apparently nighttime is not even hit yet. How many fights have already happened? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights have already happened in one day. This movie wastes none of our time and gets straight to it, and I fucking love him for doing that. Usually a fighting game movie would have scenes where people are talking or spouting exposition or showing a character in their unneeded quiet moments. But here, once the tournament happens, you already know who's who and what's about to go down, so it throws you headfirst into the fighting. But I'm getting ahead of the review here, so I'll save the rest of my thoughts for after. Anyways, it's not even nighttime yet, and we already have 5 fights that have happened, and the 6th one is about to begin. Well, probably 27th fight because 20 other dudes just got killed or TKO'd by Goro. Most likely killed. For supposedly the 27th fight of the day, it's Art versus Goro. And just look at Art's reaction. Oh hell no! I also now just realized Goro has no eyebrows. Art hits Goro a few times, but Goro is not even phased. He smacks up Art like a ragdoll, and all the fighters continue cheering him on even though Art knows damn well he is outmatched and outarmed. Goro finally picks him up after a few more hits, and probably broke his collarbone as a fatality.
Flawless victory.
I'm pretty sure Art got in a few hits, Shang Tsung. After the fight, the movie stops the action for a bit and gives the trio a little pep talk with Raiden, who reminds them that they must overcome their fear in order to win the tournament. Johnny says they're not afraid, but Raiden points out each and every character's fears and to face it. Johnny says he's not afraid, but that's just a defense mechanism for him to hide that he really is afraid. Sonya doesn't like to admit that she needs help when she clearly does at times, and Liu Kang is afraid of his destiny of being the chosen one, since he feels responsible for Chen's death. The next day at the tournament, Liu Kang has a nightmare about Chen again, and Johnny tells Sonya that he's going to challenge Goro in order to save Earthrealm. Sonya calls him crazy and selfish, except handsome, and Lyndon Ashby is handsome. Johnny meets up with Shang Tsung to challenge Goro, but Shang Tsung bargains a deal with him in order to face Goro. Allow for Shang Tsung to challenge anyone he chooses in what place, and Johnny can fight Goro. Suddenly, Raiden arrives.
I don't think so.
Love that little thunder after he speaks. Raiden overhears the deal Johnny made, but it is too late and the deal has already been sealed as Johnny tries to save Earthrealm. Raiden looks visibly worried for a second, until a smile comes across his face. The Johnny vs. Goro fight finally happens, and Goro has one hell of an intro with all the people cheering in the background with weapons. Both meet face to face. Goro takes Johnny's sunglasses and crushes them in his hand. The fight begins and...
Sorry.
Goro writhes his way out of the ring to chase after Johnny Cage, and Johnny comes to a dead end with nowhere to go. Goro arrives to find Johnny gone, but surprise!
Those were $500 sunglasses, asshole.
But Goro survives. For 2 more seconds.
This is where you fall down.
But while we were too busy applauding Johnny punching Goro in the balls, Sonya is kidnapped by Shang Tsung, who chooses her as challenger as he takes her to Outworld. Liu and Johnny then go into Outworld to save Sonya, since Raiden cannot enter Outworld, and something scaly and invisible follows them there. However, Liu Kang learned from his first encounter with Reptile, so he won't be fooled this time. Except by throwing Reptile into an Outworld golem, he created more problems. This is arguably the best fight of the entire movie. Reptile outmatches Liu Kang in speed momentarily until Liu begins using the environment to his advantage to weaken Reptile, before finally defeating him with his bicycle kick, which knocks Reptile out of his ninja form. But Liu Kang is not done yet. Kitana then appears before Liu Kang and reveals that Outworld was conquered through the Mortal Kombat tournament and that Earth will share the same fate if he does not win. She also tells him that he must face 3 challenges when he enters the Black Tower where Shang Tsung is holding Sonya hostage. Face his enemy, himself, and his worst fear. Afterwards, we cut to a group of Outworld monks in the Black Tower gathering around the Mortal Kombat dragon symbol where Sonya is being held captive. However, she has to accept Shang Tsung's challenge or else Earthrealm forfeits the tournament. This is when Johnny, Liu, and Kitana reveal themselves to be disguised as Outworld monks. Shang Tsung orders for them to be killed, but Princess Kitana calls him out on his treachery. Shang Tsung then tries to pussy out by challenging Johnny Cage, but Liu Kang says, "You ain't running anymore," and challenges Shang Tsung. With no choice, Shang Tsung accepts his challenge. The final fight for the fate of Earthrealm then begins as the iconic Mortal Kombat theme builds up to Liu Kang and Shang Tsung fighting one another. Both seem to be equally matched for a moment until Shang Tsung seemingly overpowers Liu by flipping him and... Jesus Christ, I swear there's a lot of protagonists in these fighting game movies who get flipped to momentary defeat. Is there a trend going on here that I'm not aware of? It looks like Shang Tsung earned the upper hand for a moment until Liu socks him in the mouth and makes him bleed.
Do you bleed?
Shang Tsung, being the sore loser he is, grows desperate for a win from getting socked in the mouth once, and summons the Outworld warriors of old to fight Liu Kang. He makes quick work of them without breaking a sweat. Shang Tsung, now nowhere to be found, appears above Liu standing atop the balcony. Liu goes up the stairs to face Shang Tsung, but he transforms into Chen and plays with his emotions. As fake Chen tries to get Liu to sympathize and forgive himself for letting his brother die, some ominous ground spikes come out from the dragon symbol. And just before Shang Tsung can go any further as fake Chen, Liu Kang remembers his grandfather's words on how every man is responsible for his own destiny, and how his brother had chosen his own. Shang Tsung then reverts back to himself and beats down Liu. He even slams his face against the ground. Holy shit. Apparently this knocks some sense into Liu Kang, and he stands up again stoic and strong, accepting his destiny as the chosen one, as the score builds note by note. Liu grabs Shang Tsung's fist as he tries to strike him, and Shang Tsung's souls begin leaving him as they somehow feel Liu Kang's power level.
It's over 9,000!
Liu Kang begins taunting Shang Tsung for being a soulless dude for stealing other people's souls, which pisses him off and wins Liu Kang the mental game going forward as he punches and kicks Shang Tsung multiple times, before finally finishing him off with a fireball to the chest that lands him straight into the spikes below. All the souls then release out into the atmosphere, and Chen returns to greet Liu Kang once more and say one last goodbye. Earthrealm has finally won a tournament and prevented Shao Kahn from conquering them. Everyone, including the fighters and Raiden, are celebrating their victory at the Shaolin Temple. That is, until the sky turns dark, thunderstorms appear, and a voice appears to give life to a god-awful sequel who says, The voice then reveals himself to be Shao Kahn and demands their souls, to which Raiden replies,
I don't think so.
And that was the live-action adaptation of Mortal Kombat, which also brings Fighting Game Movie Month to a close. This is the greatest video game movie ever made. The video game roots began in film, and was returned to it gracefully with the 95 MK film. The story is simple, and its characters were fun and complex that it was impossible to fail at making a movie where characters save the world through fighting a tournament. I understand that it's missing its signature gore, character costumes, and is rated PG-13, however, they were trying to get the younger audience, which was the majority to be playing at arcades and being exposed to Mortal Kombat at the time. Also, PG-13 rating means more bucks too. You also have to remember that they were adapting the first Mortal Kombat game, which was before Liu Kang had his red headband and gauntlets, and before Kitana was shown using her steel fans, so you can't complain that they weren't faithful to the best of their degree. And even though I know a good majority of stuff about MK, I was surprised to find out Kano was originally Japanese American in the first game, but was later changed to Australian after Trevor Goddard's performance in the movie became super memorable. I suppose you could say it's one of those rare creative changes that helped the franchise for the better. A bad example of creative changes would be when Resident Evil 6 tried to match the energy of the movies, which also happened to be directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, the same director who directed this movie. 95 Mortal Kombat does a good job of balancing action and storytelling together while giving each and every character their moments to shine without feeling underwhelming or overwhelming. Also, thank God for the test audiences, or else we would have never gotten that reptile fight scene or that extended Johnny vs. Scorpion fight. The actors' performances are still their own, even if they are playing an already established character. Liu Kang being the skeptic turned believer was a good storytelling choice. Johnny being a Hollywood royalty to brave warrior was a nice transition. Sonya being mission driven to damsel was an odd choice for sure, but served the purpose of fulfilling her arc of needing help even though she doesn't ask for it. Kitana was helpful. Raiden is the mentor figure who never takes himself too seriously and is willing to have some fun. And last but not least, Shang Tsung is the best villain ever, and I would say even on par with Raul Julia's M. Bison from the '94 Street Fighter movie with Van Damme. What could have been a bland mustache twirly performance from any actor, Carey absolutely nailed with this theater play-like performance and Shakespearean delivery of lines. Mortal Kombat 1995 is the epitome of what a video game movie should strive to be. It respects the characters, visually represents the video game, brings the iconic gimmicks from the game to live action, regardless of how ridiculous it looks, and most importantly is not afraid to embrace the game's tone. Future Cops did not work as an adaptation of Street Fighter because it wasn't the correct story, but had that campy fun tone of the games and attempts at the looks of the characters. The Tekken movie, while visually respectful to the characters, butchered the unending family drama between the Mishima family members with its grounded garbage rewrite. The Mortal Kombat movie, however, has all those nooks and crannies ironed out, even if not to the perfect degree I would have wanted it to be. It's got the story, the characters, the moves, the tone, everything. I will definitely be reviewing the 2021 Mortal Kombat reboot when it comes out in April, and we'll cover more movies and even games in the future. If you made it this far, you can support me on my Patreon, follow me on my socials, and thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.